Green Ops Airsoft.
Hello friends, welcome back to the Green Ops Airsoft YouTube channel. Today we are going to be disassembling an M4. Now for this video we will only be doing the outer parts of the M4. We will be breaking it down into the 5 main sections of an M4: the grip, the upper, the lower, the stock, and the gearbox. So without further ado, let's go. A few items I forgot to mention are PTFE tape and lubrication. The particular model of M4 that we will be disassembling today is the M15 Armalite Defense by Classic Army. Now, most of the parts in this M4 probably won't look identical to yours. They'll probably have some color match issues, and my gun may not even look very similar to yours. However, trust me, the internal parts are all essentially the same. For this video, be sure that you remove all batteries and all mags from your airsoft rifle, or else the top part will not come out and the hop-up will not come out. So without further ado, let's get started. We are going to flip the rifle over and look at this little pin right here. Now, most people use a pin and a hammer, but I find it is most efficient to use the blunt end of a flathead and or Phillips head screwdriver that is a similar shape to this. So I'm going to bang this pin out, but not on camera, as that would be very loud and obnoxious. Once you have that pin out, be sure to put it on your yellow mat so you do not lose it. Mine may look a little different to yours, as I have applied PTFE tape to mine because it was not staying in the cavity correctly. Now we're going to pull off the upper from the lower. That is the most disassembly I will do for the upper, as we first discussed in the beginning of this video. Since it is not a huge part, I will put it over here. However, there is one section I will not forget to skip out, as this was one of the most common problems I had when I was a beginner, is how to take the hop-up chamber off of your outer barrel. The very first thing you're going to do is put your hop-up all the way on 0. Then you're going to take out the little C-clip on the hop-up unit, and you're going to just simply slide out your hop-up unit. It may take a little wiggling, however, it will be very easy to get out. Then you can just pull off the hop-up bucking from the outer barrel. This may be a little hard to do, however, it is not impossible. Be sure to set that all on your microfiber towel, and we can continue. Next, we are going to take off the buffer tube of the stock. The stock may not be exactly like yours, as mine is a crane stock. However, for basic crane stocks, you just grab the little lever on the bottom and pull up or down. There's a small screw inside of the buffer tube that you must unscrew. This screw is very hard to get to, so I will not be showing it on camera, as I can rarely do it myself. Once you have completely unscrewed, you will simply need to pull out and then push in on this little wire right here, and make sure the screw drops out and this part drops out too. We are going to put the screw and this part together, and we are going to put the buffer tube off to the side where we put our stock. You can go ahead and turn off your flashlight and pull off the sling mount. Now, this is not a required part to have on your airsoft gun, however, it does greatly help. So now we just have the lower, the gearbox, and the grip. Next part we are going to take off is the grip. Now, on some M4 grips, there are 2 screws you will have to undo at the bottom. However, on mine, you can just take a small tool and pull forward, and then you have that. Now we have the motor and these 2 connectors. We are going to carefully pull off these two connectors, and you may even need to use your needle nose pliers at this time. Carefully disconnect those two connectors and be sure not to bend them. This can create a whole rabbit hole of problems. Next part, we are going to carefully take out our motor using our needle nose pliers. Going to put this on a mat. Your mat may have gotten quite ruffled up from that, so you're just going to want to straighten it out. And then at the bottom, there can be either 1 or 2 screws. I'll have to check. Mine has 2. So what you're going to do is take one of those long screwdrivers that you had and use your flashlight to unscrew it. Again, I won't take this off on camera because it's pretty hard to do. Alright, once you have removed those 2 screws, be sure to place them off to the side. However, do not place them near your motor as they will stick to it because they are magnetic, and that may mess with some of the technology inside of the motor. I'm not a mechanic. Taking one of our small Allen keys and simply I don't know that for sure. However, I would just place them away from the motor for safety reasons. So now we are going to pull those 2 connectors out very gently. Be sure not to bend them because it may mess with it. And since this is also a bigger part, we can just place this over with our buffer tube and stock. Now the next thing we have to do is disconnect the lower from the gearbox. And how we are going to go about that, head or flathead screwdriver, and simply pull it out. Put that off to the side, and there is one more pin we must remove before we can get to opening this up and separating the lower from the gearbox. There is that little pin right there. I'm going to shine a flashlight on it in case you can't see it. That one right there that you must remove. And it's almost as simple as taking out those pins. You just either take a small Allen key. This is very dangerous, so I wouldn't recommend it. Or you can take a punch that's small enough to fit on that hole. Less dangerous. And gently knock it out just enough so that you can grab onto it with a pair of needle-nosed or blunt-nosed pliers. Now you can see there's a rigid edge on there, and if that part goes through the gearbox, it could strip some of the gears inside, so be sure that doesn't pass through any vital gears inside of the gearbox. Next thing we are going to do is pull out our gearbox. You may have to switch your safety in between your safe and semi, your fire select in between your safe and semi. So the very first thing we are going to do in this portion of the video, once you have pulled it out, you're going to very carefully pull out any technological parts that may have something to do with the technological system, and just pull that all out. There will also be this small pin that will come out along with it that nests right there. You have to put that in before the gearbox if you wish to have that pin on there. I personally don't keep it on my rifles because it makes too much noise. So now we are going to go into the disassembly or the reassembly process of our rifle. Gently push that through. And once you have that in there, you're going to immediately put this pin back in. Make sure the teeth are facing outwards, and you can simply hammer it back in. As you can see, I butchered that job. So we are going to put this part back in first for safety reasons. Be sure to push that through and put that pin back in. Once you have that part back in, we are going to go about putting the grip back on. Now, I find the easiest way to reapply the grip is to take your screwdriver, put the screw on the end of it, and carefully thread it through the hole that it was originally inserted into. Do that for both screws. Next, we're going to reinsert the mag release. Plop the mag release back in, flip it over, put the spring back on, put the button back on there, and then just re-screw that in while pushing the button down so that you can actually reach the threads of the screws. Fall out like I just did, and use your flashlight to re-screw them. Alright, once you have that part back in, the rest is fairly simple. You just have to make sure the red and black are on opposite sides from where the actual threads or connectors are. So, for example, this is the red dot should be over here. Then you're going to reconnect your little connectors. This part is also very difficult, so I will be doing this off camera. So yeah, quick check-in. Don't be an idiot like me and overscrew your screw, or else you can break off the top of it. Alright, once you have reconnected them, make sure the wires are out of the way, and then you can reinstall your top of your airsoft gun. And as you can see, it is now perfect. And now we are going to go about reinstalling our buffer tube. Now, the buffer tube is actually much easier to reinstall than it is to remove. So what we're going to do, we're going to put our sling mount back on. Then we are going to take our buffer tube, put the screw and this part, just go ahead and thread this wire through. And then we can put this part on our screwdriver. And the trick to this part is to flip this assembly upside down, place the buffer tube onto the gun, and then we are going to take our screwdriver and basically, with the screw on it, stick it up into here and tighten it down. I'm not going to do this on camera because it's quite difficult to show on camera. So once we have that all slid into place, We are going to put our C-clip back on and make sure everything's placed in right. So this is not placed in right. So that means there's an alignment issue. So if that occurs, just be sure to fix it. And there you go. Hop up fully assembled. Now we are going to reinsert this portion back into our upper. And once you have that on, you can slide your upper back onto your lower, reinsert the pin quickly, and then you are done with the assembly. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Bye!